This is Point of View, celebrating a world record-breaking 62 years of quality public affairs programs from the studios of WDEF News 12, Chattanooga. Some time ago, legendary CBS newsman Walter Cronkite described Chattanooga as one of the dirtiest cities in America. Well, we know that's not the case now, but there's always the tale of two cities. That's in part what has been examined in a 7-part series, an outstanding series in the Chattanooga Times Free Press. Specifically, it's called The Poverty Puzzle. With me today are two of the reporters who put together this awesome piece of work over the course of a year. We'd like to welcome first Joy Lukasik-Smith. Welcome to the show. And also we'd like to welcome reporter Joan Gareth McLean.
Hello.
Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
The poverty puzzle. Most people don't really want to hear about poverty. It doesn't affect me. You know, it's those other people. But now you got the assignment. Well, how did you come up with the assignment to look into poverty here in Chattanooga?
Well, we didn't get an assignment. We stumbled on the idea because of some other stories we were working on. We were writing about the Violence Reduction Initiative, an idea that our mayor, Andy Burke, had proposed to address the gang violence that had grown in the city. And Joy and I were learning a lot about what families in the inner city were experiencing through writing about that program and how it was attempting to help young men that were struggling and turning to crime because they didn't have opportunities in education or in jobs. And we just met a lot of people, like families and young men and young women that moved us, that told us there was something more there than just crime and just the surface story that we've kind of told over and over again as beat reporters.
The crime, the welfare, et cetera, the food stamps. Mm-hmm. So as you began to get into this, was there some type of national reporter group that also thought that this was a great idea that you guys were doing?
Yes. There is a national group called the Solutions Journalism Network, and they're kind of a more recent nonprofit that's formed. A group from the New York Times and some other national publications got together to form it. And the purpose of this nonprofit is to encourage newsrooms across America to look at issues and write about the negative and write about what's affecting communities in bad ways, like crime and low educational achievement. But they also encourage newspapers and reporters like us to look at what are the solutions or what are things that are being done in other communities that could maybe lead us to a solution. I mean, no community is like another, but we can still learn from each other. And I think it's kind of calling us to do more than be just bearers of bad news, like to be a part of a dialogue in the community of how can we make this the best city and the best place to be together.
So as you got into this, the poverty puzzle and the pieces began to come together, you found segments that involved religion, organized religion. You found stuff that involved jobs. How did you break this thing down?
Well, I think it was when we really started to realize there wasn't one thing. I mean, a lot of people concentrate on like, oh, it's just single mom, you know, it's just there's no jobs, there's just it's just an education problem. And when you really start to look at it, it's not just one piece, it's really all of these pieces. And so, but in order to really write about all of them, we obviously had to break them into sections because it's such a huge topic. And to even write about something as nuanced and as huge as a family as being a problem, or writing about you know, the education system being a problem, even that we had to like figure out what little slice, you know, we were going to concentrate on. As
reporters, you get an opportunity to cover crime, you get a chance to cover politics and everything. How did you feel getting into this, and did your background covering other stories help to prepare you for what you were uncovering?
I think that I'll speak from my experience. Joy has a long history of covering crime in courts, and so she's very experienced when it comes to like looking at government bureaucracy and how it functions and if it's working appropriately or not. And so she brought that to bear, and she also had a lot of training with looking at numbers and data and analyzing that, and so that was really helpful. And then for me, another thing that I think we brought to the table is, you know, we came from middle-class, white, suburban households that, you know, and we were taught a certain viewpoint in the world, and And I think that we understand personally why a lot of people turn away from traditional media and from newspapers and have that distrust. And so we wanted to write a series that was accurate, but it was so accurate, or it felt so accurate, that it could even reach our parents. And that could inform them or give them a little information, not to sway anybody one way or another, but to let people know all the facts so that they can come to their own conclusions with all the facts. And that's why we work so hard to give like the primary source material to readers online on the website, because we want them to know where the information came from and to make their own judgment and their own call on what should be the next step.
Well, with any puzzle, you have to lay down the first piece in order to get an idea. And for some of us, we don't get past that first piece. What was the first piece that you laid down? What's the first thing that you covered in telling the story of the poverty puzzle?
Well, yeah, I mean, it started with, like, we didn't know what we were doing at first. I mean, I think Joy and I are just really curious. I wouldn't say we'd call ourselves, like, the smartest girls in the world, but we're really, really
okay
curious.
To do that. I mean, this is television, and you can play that whether you are or not, right?
We're just really, really curious. Like, we're the type of reporters that'll, like, hide behind dumpsters for a story and just do anything, and we love it. We have a lot of fun, and we're a good team, and we've been friends for a long time, but we really just wanted to know what was could there even be an answer? We were so curious to see what it all boiled down to when you looked at it from every angle, when you talked to people on all sides of it. Like, if you didn't just take a slice of it, like if you didn't just take the nonprofit's point of view or the government's point of view or the person in the inner city's point of view or the suburban person's point of view. And if you learned about all of them and tried to appreciate all of them and see their point of view, that was kind of where we got to be as writers. And I think that people understood that we could see their side of it and that we wanted to bring people together. And so that was kind of the overall goal.
Was it difficult once people understood what you were doing, getting people to open up and talk to you about what their plight was or what they're trying to do? And the second part of that is how inspiring are you at the conclusion of this series? The seventh part is just about to finish. Joy?
I found people to be really open, actually. Like, as soon as you asked for their opinion, they wanted to tell you really quickly. And we had, I don't know if it's just the way we asked or the way we approached it, but, you know, I had people open up to me, people that were in poverty, just open their entire life up to me and tell me exactly how it was and their struggles and everything they had struggled with their entire life. And
was there one story in particular that just really tugged at your heartstrings, that just really got you?
Well, in the jobs piece that ran last week, Courtney Brown is, he's just turned 20, and he lives in Avondale, which is near where the former Harriet Tubman site was, where it got knocked down. And he was raised by his great-grandmother. And so his story really touched me because he wants so badly to make a difference in the world, and he's got that light in his eyes, and he's got that desire, and he's talented, but he just doesn't know exactly where to start, or he doesn't have anybody to kind of guide him along. And so he really struck me as like the perfect person to tell his story, because that's what so many of these kids face. We try to paint them all as, you know, in one
Well,
corner.
the stereotypes pop up whether you want them to or
Sure.
not, because that's what's going to be portrayed on nightly news. But as you got into this, you learned more about the role of organized religion. The status quo, and then there's something else that's coming along that is a whole new way of looking at the responsibility of organized religion and the community at large.
Joy can speak to that because she spent a lot of time researching that topic and looking at how Chattanooga was a place with many, many people that claim strong faith. And
we wanted to look at exactly how churches that were actually helping, you know, what they were doing that was different than just, you know, giving away a turkey at Thanksgiving or giving away a toy at Christmas or doing just the typical things that churches do, which aren't bad, but they're not helping people to actually, you know, lift themselves out of poverty. It's not going to have, like, lasting change in their life. And so we highlighted the Chalmers Center at Covenant, and they actually work with churches across the country to try to teach them how do you walk alongside people and be Christians that are really supportive, but also essentially trying to rebuild community with them.
Well,
how do you
does
live
that
life
happen?
with them?
That's a tall order.
Well, the first step, I guess, is just to get to know people. It's to come down out of your, house or out of your little enclave and to actually just say hey to your neighbor. And then what they do is they encourage churches to form a class with people in poverty and the people in the middle class. And together you form a friendship. And at that point, then you can really get to know each other and then figure out what your needs are or their needs are.
I've always seen churches as being highly competitive. They're like football teams. They recruit. They're very territorial. Was there anything that made different churches come together and work together towards solving this poverty puzzle?
We asked so many people when we saw things that were working. We were trying to figure out, like, what was the common denominator? What was the thing that made it magical, that made it work, that saved people's lives, essentially? And I finally got the answer toward the end of the research when I talked to Gail Machen, who is the wife of the former governor of West Virginia. And she told me that the programs that she's seen, or the projects or the attempts that she's seen to help lift communities or people out of poverty, are usually formed of a cadre of people that are in it for the right reasons. Like, they're not in it for, for it to be a stepping stone in their career, for some achievement with the poor to be a stepping stone or to lead to a raise or whatever. They really understand that a lot of children in America do not have access to equal opportunity, and they want to fight that.
Well, the situation here in Hamilton County is not particularly good. We're like 91st in terms of the school systems being able to prepare students for the jobs that are at hand. You pointed that out in the series. How hopeful are you that the politicians and the education system will be able to, I see you smiling, go ahead.
Well, it's just really up to them. I mean, like we said, we just looked at other cities that have actually been able to break some of those barriers and those traditional, we only talk to this group, or we only, work with these people. And like Joan said, it's only going to work if everybody is willing to break down those silos and actually work together.
So you've been able to put together this 7-part series. It's concluding this Sunday.
Yes.
Okay, what is the 7th and last part?
Well, I think the last story that's going to run is going to be an examination of McDowell County, West Virginia, which is where I met Gail Machen. And it's a community that has been deeply troubled by the decline of the coal mining industry. They've lost a lot of jobs, and what they've experienced is not very different from what so many families in our inner city have experienced.
You wouldn't think so with their principal product being coal, but ours was Rust Bucket Industries. Okay.
And I mean, it just reflects what's happened all across the country with the decline of the working class. And a lot of men there are challenged to find work, and they're discouraged, and their families are suffering because of it. And drug addiction is rampant, and it's an issue. So we're going to be looking at that community and what leaders there and the community members have done to address that.
Well, I can't wait for the remainder of the series. Congratulations to you and the staff and the management over at the Times Free Press for having the courage to take a year to put together something of this magnitude. It doesn't happen often, and surely we're all hopeful that there will be some terrific follow-up and action that will result from the work that you guys have done. It has been a pleasure reading what you guys have done.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're honored to
And
be here.
well, you'll have to come back again. Thank you so much, Joy and Joan. Thank you for being guests. Now, when we talk about financial secrets, part of Family Matters, some people have never, ever looked at their spouse's finances. We'll talk about that and more in just a moment when Point of View continues.
Life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. But you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Join us for Point of View, weekends on News 12 Now and Bounce Chattanooga.
You're doing great. We're gonna try this again, okay?
Okay.
Wheels, pedals, handlebar, brakes. Sit up straight, keep your weight in the center, keep your eyes on the road, hands on the grips, button the seat. If we feel ourselves falling, what do?
Just keep pedaling.
Good girl. Now remember, it's all about balance and steering. Steer with your hands, steer with your body. Steer into the corners and you stay out of trouble. And the bell's your buddy, so go ahead and ding that. All right, ready? Here we go. Pedal, honey, pedal. There you go, you're a bike rider.
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain.
Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
Family law, what does that entail? When we think of family sitting around the dinner table, everyone together having great discussions like you might see on television, it doesn't really happen. We're busy people, careers take us here, there, different hours and what have you. Sometimes everything goes really well with the family and other times it doesn't. And for opportunities to talk about how to make things better or to bring about an amicable solution, I got that word out, we often want to turn to a family law attorney. That's what we're doing this afternoon. Leslie McWilliams, thank you very much for joining us here.
Thank you. It's my
On
pleasure.
Point of View. So, family law, what is that?
Family law in itself is kind of a generic term that refers to anything from divorce, custody, child support. It also includes juvenile court and the matters that occur out there.
So there can be anywhere between 7 and 10 different things that you might be asked to be involved with in terms of...
Well, actually, it gets bigger than that because once you touch a family, you touch them in so many different ways. As you mentioned earlier, you've got to know finances. You've got to know good counselors. You've got to know family dynamics. So you end up the school system, how they work, what they require. I've had an issue recently with how do you register a car in the middle of all of this. And so it brings you into a lot of different areas, actually.
So you spend a lot of time in and out of court, but do you spend as much time behind the scenes with people coming in to try to see, well, what is the real issue?
Yes, absolutely. Because the goal for me in family law is to settle it by agreement. You want an amicable divorce, especially when there's children. These people are going to have contact with each other for years to come. They're going to be at college graduations together. And so the goal is always to do it as amicably as possible.
You know, I like the way you said that. They're going to be at college graduations together. They're going to be doing this. No, they're not. Okay? They're not. And you have one person sitting over here shooting daggers at the other person. They don't even want to be in the same room with each other. How do you set up that communication so that you can try to find a happy medium?
Honestly, after 27 years, there are some people that will never be able to communicate. There's just no matter what we try to do. But we try to take them back to a basic level to begin talking to each other. And the law now requires parties to participate in mediation. And mediation's a process where they attend this session with a trained mediator to try to begin to work together to solve their issues. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of families out there that are able to do it, especially with children, when they're able to focus on what's really important. When you get down to money, sometimes it becomes a much dicier situation. But we hope we can get them to focus on their children first.
In a lot of relationships, some people may have seen each other as a couple nude, okay, but they have never seen each other's finances.
That's correct.
How do you deal with that?
Well, typically
I don't mean the nude part.
Right, the nude part, I can't help you on that one.
I meant the financial part.
Although I get to hear a lot of those stories too some days. The financial part of it is, the story is really that we all leave a path wherever we go. And unless you're talking about somebody that works for cash under the table that they've never reported to Uncle Sam, that's a hard case. But otherwise, you can find a lot of that financial information out there. As a good lawyer, what you're doing is you're looking at a lot of bank statements, credit cards, things like that.
Forensics, in a way.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, social media has been a great gift to family
you know
law.
what? I am amazed at what people put on social media, and it never dawns on them. This is there, and it's forever.
That's correct. That is correct. And in a divorce case, when you and your girlfriend are happily smiling with that beer in between you, it's hard to explain to the judge you were just friends out for an evening.
Yeah, well, there's a record I'll call It's Cheaper to Keep Her.
That is exactly right. But social media has been a great gift to us. People use their debit cards. There's lots of ways that you can trace what people are doing. It's kind of tough to hide anymore.
Who, it seems to be less candid? I'll use that as opposed to, I don't want to just come out and say who's the biggest liar, but who is less candid about financial matters, men or women?
Probably men. I think it's the way they're raised. And they seem to want to hold back something. But I'm not going to say it's only men. I truly, I work about half and half with men and women, and there's certain personalities with both sexes. But men are harder to give it up. We'll talk about alimony later, but one of the things is when the word alimony comes up, men just, no, you bristle. And so maybe you learn you don't call it alimony. Maybe you work it in a different manner, because men are probably the one who are the most recalcitrant.
I did the communications with a good friend of mine in Boston. We fought for many years for alimony reform. And this is where it's a sliding scale now, based on how many years have you been together, what's the income level of each of the people. It slides down as you begin to better take care of yourself. Alimony is just one thing, but let's get back to the marriage or the relationship. More people are staying together now as opposed to getting married.
Living together without benefit of marriage, yes.
Exactly. So what are the dangers or pitfalls in doing that without having a good discussion about finances?
You have no safeguards. You have no protections. The relationship is almost, you could describe as a business relationship. We bought a building together. We bought a house together. We shared a household. But there's no responsibility to assist or take care of the other person. And I find it to be very scary, because especially when one party is a primary wage earner, the other has lower income, that's probably going to be the person who sacrifices their own career to stay home, help with the children, care for the house, and one day I'm making the male the bad guy in this case, but he says, I'm done with you.
Why wouldn't you? I mean, that's the way it usually happens anyhow.
Not true. Not true.
Okay, guys, I'm pitching for us out there. You heard that, right?
But the guy says, I'm done. I'm leaving you for a younger version. And she has nothing. They might have owned a house together, or the house was probably in his name. The car is in his name. She hasn't been in the workforce in years. She can get some child support, but she can't get any alimony.
How could she protect herself?
A written agreement. But I will tell you that it's really hard to get. We encourage people to get prenuptial agreements. It's very hard. They say, you're asking us to contemplate a divorce. No, I'm not.
Right.
I'm trying to make you plan for just in case what happens. And I cannot ever recall seeing any kind of written agreement by people who chose to live together. Should be, but there's not.
For people who choose to live together, or for people who are actually entering into this legal marriage, how do you recommend people handle finances? They have two separate pieces of money and a community pot?
Depends on the people involved. Because my husband and I can work out of one account. We agree with how money's spent, and we always have throughout our marriage. It's never been a problem. When you get couples, though, that one wants to spend and one wants to save, that idea of having one account becomes very problematic in the marriage. And then you see more of a husband's wife and then a joint account. But truly, when people come to me and they say, I'm thinking about getting married, based on your experience, what do you recommend? One of the first things I say is you want to look at your prospective spouse's checkbook. If you don't agree on how to spend money.
Tell me how that's usually going to work out, right?
But if you don't agree, then you're going to end up in a divorce lawyer's office.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier, who was more or less candid about finances, I thought, from some information I've read over the years, that women were a little less candid about the smaller things. Oh, this old dress, it's been in the back of my closet forever. Or, I got this on sale. So for the little things, I think women may, because they shop more. Guys, we just wear things with holes in them for the most part, because it's soft and it's already broken in.
Right.
I'm not trading this for nothing. But what's happening with the younger people that you're seeing? Are younger and younger people coming to you for an attempt to try to make something work out of this, or let it break up fairly?
Oh, I find the younger people are more casual about it. They'll just let it go. The older people are really the ones I think that struggle with it more. But I do. I think that young people have the attitude today that if it doesn't work, that's okay. I'll
And
just leave the marriage.
I can get it back, or I can, it was not mine anyway. Now, when it comes down to, go ahead.
The one other thing is that younger people, I have this sense, are more willing to throw out the divorce word. Well, I'll just divorce you, or I'll leave. I don't, it doesn't matter. I'm gone. And they'll give it up too easy. And the problem is, once you put that word divorce out there, you can't ever take it back. And a marriage, a good marriage, is based on a true trust system where we believe in each other, where we know we're going to be together no matter what comes next. And when you throw that D word out there, you've now broken that trust, and somebody's always wondering. You use the example of the woman who says, oh, honey, I got it on sale. You won't believe what a good deal I got. And she really paid full price. Those are the relationships where there's a power imbalance.
Right.
She's afraid.
Right.
If I tell the truth, what comes next? But I think people have to talk. They have to be honest, or that trust factor is never going to work.
How do people reach you?
I've got the little yellow house on Germantown Road right at I-24, and people say I drove by McWilliams and Golds for years and never realized we were there.
Okay. Do you have a website or something?
We do, mcgfirm.com. Both my partner and I are family law lawyers. Between the two of us, we have over 50 years of family law experience.
Family law, we still look at it. Most of us think that I'll never need a family lawyer. Nothing's ever going to happen to me. Look, I've had a charmed life. I've got money in the bank. She's got some money in the bank. We're never going to need your services.
Statistically, 1 in 2 couples are going to need us.
You're finding that's happening more and more. Really want to continue the conversation, but unfortunately, Joan, we're out of time. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Now listen, next week, immigrants and refugees, they're here. That's the next point of view. Please join us then.
Closed captioning provided by the following.
Funding for this program is brought to you by Barnett and Company, specializing in tax-efficient strategies for the preservation and distribution of family wealth, offering continuous investment management with the focus on long-term strategies. Areas of service include investment, estate, education, and retirement planning. Barnett and Company, the power of compound returns over time. More information can be found on the web at barnettandcompany.com.